Hey guys, today we're here at TBM Brakes and we're going to install the XS3 street brake kit on this Cadillac CTS-V. Okay, so we have our full brake kit laid out. It's going to come with calipers, pads, caliper brackets, rotors, and rotor hats. We're going to go ahead now and assemble our rotor onto our rotor hats. It comes with all the hardware. We're going to apply red Loctite to these hardware and torque them down to 18 foot-pounds. These brake kits fit Cadillac CTS-V2, 5th Gen Camaro, and G8 models. It's the same exact kit. They utilize the same front spindle, so it'll bolt on the same way we do on this video. Place our rotor hat down, and then our brake rotor onto the hat. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and remove the stock brakes, get the car ready to install our new brakes, and once we have these off, we're going to weigh them out and see how they compare to the new XS3. For the next step, we have the stock brakes removed, and on this car we have to make a small modification to the spindle to clear the brake rotor. So we're going to remove the wheel bearing hub assembly. There's 3 13mm bolts on the back side. Remove this small dust shield. We're going to go ahead and flatten out this hump that's in this casting to provide the clearance for the new brake rotor. Depending on the level of corrosion between the hub and the hub assembly, this is a light press fit. And it may take a little finessing to get this out of here. Slide hammer on the front would be a nice way to get it out, or to hit it from the back side. Just one thing to be careful of is on the back of this bearing seal, you can see the little lines there. This is actually the wheel speed sensor pickup for the wheel speed sensor. So if you're hitting from the back, be sure not to hit this part or you'll get ABS light on after. Now before we reinstall this, we want to go ahead and clean all of the corrosion off of this and this surface. Put a little anti-seize on it, should go right together. So with the wheel bearing removed, we went ahead and clearanced our knuckle here. We flattened this surface out. Now what we're going to do is take this heat shield, this shim, with a pair of metal shears or a cutter. We're going to cut off this section that sticks out over here, and all that's going to be left is our shim for our bearing. And we're going to install this behind the bearing, go ahead and assemble the car. Okay, so now it's time for the fun part. We're going to weigh the stock brakes and compare it to the XS3. And one thing also, the rotor on this car is actually an aftermarket rotor that has been lightened and drilled. So we're probably giving up a pound or so with that, but we'll just weigh it as if it was a stock rotor because it's going to be significant either way. The bracket on there, the hardware, and we're at 42.4 pounds for one side of the stock brakes. Now let's go ahead and put up the TBMs. Here are rotor, bracket, hardware, brake pads, and the XS3 caliper. 16.8, so we got around a 25-pound weight savings per side, so 50 total weight savings for your front brake kit. So now we're going to go ahead and install our brake bracket onto the spindle using the provided hardware with red Loctite, and we're going to use the torque specifications that's in the instruction sheet that was included with the brakes. All right, so we cleaned our hub surface earlier. We're gonna go ahead and install our brake rotor. We're gonna use the lug nuts from the vehicle to hold it up tight to simulate the wheel. So when we put on our caliper, we can check our pad spacing. Now there are a right and a left rotor. They are directional. In the instruction sheet, there's clearly labeled arrows to show you, but basically the cooling vanes are going to go this direction of the rotation of the vehicle. Another thing to watch out for when you're putting this hat on is, as you can see, it's drilled for multiple vehicle applications, the Camaro and the G8 and things like that. We have machined in here a 1, 2, and a 3. These holes are different size depending on which stud you have, and in the instruction sheet there'll be identification to which number to install for which vehicle you're using. For this CTS-V, we're using hole number 3, so we'll line that one up to one stud and the rest will fall into place. Okay, now we'll install our caliper. There'll be 2 calipers in your kit. When you install them, you just want the bleeder up to which side of the car it goes on. So now our caliper is on and we just snugged it for this part. We're going to install our brake pads and check the spacing between the outboard pad and inboard pad to the rotor. We want the pads to be spaced evenly from the inside to the outside, and if it's not, we'll use the shims provided in the kit to space the caliper accordingly. Okay, so we have our caliper installed and we slid the brake pads down. Push the brake pads all the way flush up against the pistons to check the spacing between the pad and the rotor. As you can see on the initial install, the outboard pad has a large air gap between itself and the rotor, and the inboard pad is flush with the rotor. So we're going to go ahead and install a 30,000 shim that was included in our brake hardware kit behind the caliper to space it back to create an even gap between the outboard and inboard pad. So we installed the shim and now you can see we have even pad spacing on the inboard and outboard pad. This step is crucial to make sure for even pad wear and life of your brake pads. Be sure to check this and install shims if needed. Okay, we got our brakes installed. The last piece of this puzzle are brake lines. We're going to install now our vehicle-specific brake line. So this is a stainless steel line that will connect directly to the factory brake line and connect to our caliper. You'll find these on our website underneath the brake line section. Another thing that we have coming soon is a dual line lock kit for every modern vehicle out. So it'll be one line lock valve on each side that will connect right to the factory brake line. Then this brake line will hook it to the wheel, so you won't have to make or create any lines. It'll just kind of plug and play deal. Okay, so we got our front brake kit installed, bled out, ready to roll. 50 pounds weight savings on the front. And we also noticed when we put the wheels on, with our brake kit, you can run a flush-faced wheel. So you don't have to run the 18-inch with the aggressive concave to clear the stock brake caliper. You can run like an Alumistar or a lot lighter front wheel, which will, you'll lose that offset, it won't poke as much. So it's another huge advantage to going to this style of brake. Our rear kit will be ready here in a couple weeks. We're gonna get this car back. Go ahead and put those on and show you guys those as well. Thanks for watching, and check us out, tbm.com, if you have any questions, or call in to get your brake kit.